to make that available. So welcome again, everyone. Again, thank you for your time in joining us to learn about the George Shultz Innovation Fund and additional science-based acceleration programs through the Polsky Center. For those of you who are new to the Polsky Center, we're the central resource at the University of Chicago for transforming groundbreaking ideas and discoveries into new products, services, and ventures. We have over 60 people on our staff that serve students, faculty, researchers, and alumni, as well as the Chicago's South Side community. The Polsky Center has a few teams and a few physical locations when we're all able to work in person. That spans everything from education to venture support and funding. It also includes the technology commercialization and licensing arm of the University of Chicago, as well as partner and industry relations. The Polsky Center has numerous resources for students who are exploring commercialization, looking to get in touch with entrepreneurship and investing, researchers who are looking to commercialize their innovations, and much more. So today we'd like to share with all of you information on 3 of our marquee programs that support researchers who are looking to commercialize their innovations and bring their research to market. That would be the I-Corps program, the Compass Accelerator, and the George Shultz Innovation Fund. We're going to go about this information session in the order at which we advise companies to progress through this pipeline of programs. Beginning first with the I-Corps program. And with that, I'll pass it over to my colleague, Ellen, to share a little bit more about both the I-Corps and the Compass Accelerator.
Thanks, Nora. Hi, everyone. My name is Ellen Zakowski, and I am a senior program manager at the Polsky Center. And one of the programs that I manage is the I-Corps program, which is funded through the National Science Foundation. So I'll do a very brief overview of I-Corps. And then, like Nora said, also share some details about our new Compass Deep Tech Accelerator. So the I-Corps program is often the first step program that we have our researchers and faculty members and students take as they're thinking about commercializing discoveries from their research or technologies that they've been developing. And it is a great way to start exploring potential market applications for your work. It is funded through the National Science Foundation. So the Polsky Center has been running an I-Corps program for about, 7 years now. We have a cohort each quarter. So the program spans 7 weeks. We're in week 3 of our winter cohort right now, and really focuses on providing faculty, researchers, and students with an experiential education to help you gain insight into the entrepreneurial process, what might go into potentially starting a venture based on your technologies or discoveries. So we accept teams that are exploring potential market applications for a STEM-based technology, project, or idea. And these teams are typically 2 to 4 people. Our team can definitely help connect you with students who are interested in joining an I-Corps team, since that way you can kind of spread the load a little bit and kind of get the full experience out of the program. The bulk of the program focuses on customer discovery interviews. So getting out of the lab and stepping away from your research for a moment to really connect with stakeholders in the market that you're exploring or the industry that you're hoping to enter, and learning a little bit more about the problem that you're trying to solve, what the customer's pain points are, what are their motivations or behaviors for adopting a new product or service, and really getting a good understanding of where your solution could potentially fit into the market. And we also provide opportunities to start gaining some entrepreneurial skills through both synchronous content, which is primarily held through virtual sessions, which I'll talk about in a second, and then asynchronous, more self-paced learning outside of those sessions. So in terms of the curriculum and some of the educational training we offer through I-Corps, we do hold 4 virtual sessions facilitated by an I-Corps instructor. We're hopeful those will not have to be virtual going forward after this year, but we'll see. We've definitely made the transition to full virtual programming. We also host on Canvas a range of educational videos, readings, and other materials that teams access throughout the program to kind of help guide them through the customer discovery methodology that we teach. We support teams in developing their elevator pitch and being able to share their science with non-technical audiences. Teams receive coaching from our Polsky team to really focus in on their customer discovery process. I apologize for any background noise. It's my cat, if you hear any squeaks in the background. And then in terms of our program, we also want to create a cohort structure so that teams can learn from one another because everyone is really going through this customer discovery process together. So we do provide a lot of opportunities in our virtual sessions for teams to connect with one another and really build out their own networks. With the goal that by the end of the 7 weeks, teams have achieved 30 customer discovery interviews and really have a more solid understanding of the market that they're exploring for their future product or service, and really getting a good sense for what is motivating the stakeholders in that space. And then in terms of the benefits of the program, in addition to the innovation skills training that I mentioned, teams really start to gain access to Polsky resources and a lot of our other next step programming that we offer. Teams also receive a microgrant from the National Science Foundation that is $2,500 to support their customer discovery efforts. But with that funding also comes a designation as an NSF grantee. So when teams are applying for other funding opportunities after I-Corps, the NSF does really like to see that they've participated in an I-Corps program. And so we definitely have had teams go on to receive SBIR or STTR funding to support their venture, which can be over $1 million when all is said and done. And then after I-Corps, one of those next step programs that I mentioned is also one of our newest programs at the Polsky Center. I know some of you were in our Compass info session last week. I see some familiar names, but the Compass is a deep tech accelerator. So the Polsky Center certainly offers a range of other accelerator programming, but we really saw a need to create an accelerator that addresses the unique needs of deep tech ventures and those technologies that take a lot of time and resources to develop, but have such a huge potential for impact. So the accelerator itself is in its second cohort, launched last summer, and it is a 6-month program. So it has a couple different steps to the process. For the application process, part of that involves a startup evaluation, which I'll talk about in a little bit. So we do kind of a deep dive into the technologies that are applying to the accelerator to really assess which technologies are in the best position to take full advantage of the accelerator programming. And once teams have been accepted, they enter the first phase or the first 3 months of the accelerator, which is really focused on validating their business model, developing a business model, doing some additional customer discovery, really figuring out what a go-to-market strategy would look like for their venture. And then the second 3 months is really spent operationalizing that strategy, really trying to secure a first customer or first partner, and also developing a pitch so that teams by the end of the 6 months are in a position to be investor ready and receive that funding to continue supporting their venture as they move forward. We have 4 key verticals that we support through the accelerator. We've tried to keep these pretty general to encompass a whole range of technologies. So those 4 verticals are data science, quantum, material science, and life science, which also reflects some of the strategic areas of focus of the university as well. And just to dive a little bit more into the program itself, we spend, like I said, that first 3 months really validating. So exploring product market fit, having additional conversations with stakeholders, developing that business model, so that teams can also elevate the readiness of their technology, really understanding what milestones have to be hit in order to continue to progress. If they're a life science venture in particular, understanding regulatory processes that they have to abide by and how they'll make sure that both their business and technology are kind of moving towards those milestones. And then we also, like I said, help teams develop their investment pitch. So really, how do you tell your story and share your exciting science with an investment audience, a non-technical audience? Teams participate in pitch practice sessions and other events throughout the 6 months to receive feedback on their pitch and really help them hone their story as they move from the accelerator into conversations with investors. We've built in a lot of support structures from the Polsky Center to really help teams navigate this process. So teams receive weekly one-on-one coaching. Christine Karslik, who's on the call, is one of our coaches through the Compass. And that coaching is also kind of supported in tandem with mentor conversations that teams have with industry experts who really bring their unique perspective to our teams and help them navigate this process. We also host weekly educational programming sessions, which are facilitated by our amazing booth faculty, as well as other industry experts connected to the Polsky Center, who can really help teams continue to gain the training they need to then apply it to their specific startups. And then finally, we match teams with business talent. So we primarily work with Chicago Booth students to serve as business development fellows who are matched to a Compass team and really support their business development strategy and operations throughout the Compass. I mentioned some of these benefits already, but there's a lot that our teams get out of the Compass. In addition to the business talent, coaching and mentoring, the educational content, we also work on connecting teams with potential investors and other industry experts to further build out their networks and their connections. We also help them work towards early stage sources of funding, like the George Shultz Innovation Fund, which Nora will certainly talk about in more detail. One of the teams from our first Compass cohort, Reacts Biotechnologies, actually did receive investment from the Innovation Fund last fall. So that was really exciting after we wrapped up our first cohort to have that milestone. So that was great news. And then in terms of the eligibility and application process, how teams can get involved in the Compass, we are primarily looking at early stage ventures that are coming out of research at the University of Chicago, as well as the national labs. We do have an Argonne-based team in our second cohort right now. And we do give priority to startups who have done some customer discovery. So a lot of them have been through the I-Corps program and really started to get a better sense of who their customer is, how their solution fits into the market. If they are a platform technology that they've selected some sort of target application, or your technology can go in a million different directions and have so many use cases, have really narrowed it into where you want to start. And then also recruited additional team members beyond a scientific founder. So that could look like a faculty member and a postdoc or graduate student or other faculty member. And then, like I said, we help build out the teams through connecting to Booth students. And then finally, that teams are really able to fully commit to the program requirements and get the most out of the accelerator. And I can certainly talk about that in more detail if you have any questions. And then in terms of the application, so our cohorts start in the summer and winter quarters. So we currently have a call for applications out right now, and I can share the link to the application in the chat in a little bit. Our deadline is coming up on Friday, February 26th. And so all of these applications will undergo an initial review. And from that review, we'll select finalists who will go into our startup evaluation process in the spring quarter. So those technologies will be evaluated by Polsky staff as well as students who are our Polsky Science Innovation Fellows. And they will help make a recommendation on which technologies seem best positioned for the accelerator. And following that startup evaluation is when final decisions are made on the teams who will be in cohort 3, which will kick off in July. Now I will hand it back to Nora, who will dive into the Innovation Fund.
Wonderful. Thank you, Ellen. So the reason that we're providing information on both the I-Corps program and Compass Accelerator, in addition to the Innovation Fund, is to represent the ways in which those programs can be building blocks to prepare ventures and management teams to come through the Innovation Fund process. So do know that those are building blocks accessible to you and your teams. They often will, improve the chances of your application when coming through the Innovation Fund and provide you with really important milestones and resources to help scale and grow your team and move you towards some of the milestones that we're looking for in Innovation Fund applicants. I welcome everyone as we continue through this portion of the info session to certainly begin tossing questions in the chat, and we'll be sure that we address all of them before the end of our session. So without further ado, the George Shultz Innovation Fund is a gap fund that helps support ventures who maybe are at the end of federal funding, but not yet ready for their first institutional round. So this graphic shows kind of the pathways of research to new product to commercialization. So oftentimes government funding through NSF, NIH, and otherwise really help fund the basic research, help fund bringing the aha moment to a better understanding of applied research and a better experiment of the technical challenge. At that point, oftentimes other grants, SBIR and STTIR grants are really helpful in accelerating ventures within that opportunity. But there's still quite a few milestones before you are on the path to commercialization and really build out that first new product. And that's where the Innovation Fund can provide support, both from a funding perspective and also from the diligence that the teams will go through, the mentorship that they receive from the Innovation Fund team, and the feedback from our advisory committee. So we kind of play in that space between federal funding and grant funding and closing that first institutional round, a Series C or Series A. So the Innovation Fund process. It is a 10-week process. We're currently in the application phase where we will be reviewing applications from many management teams and whittling it down to between 3 and 4 teams to advance and participate formally in the George Shultz Innovation Fund process. Week 1 is the kickoff, where we will introduce you to your Innovation Fund associates. Your Innovation Fund associates, or due diligence team, as we call it, is a cross-disciplinary team of students with representation from Booth School of Business, the law school, various PhD and postdoc programs, and other academic disciplines of the university. The rationale for creating these cross-disciplinary teams is so that they can holistically evaluate your management team and your venture, really dive into the details of due diligence from the perspective of an MBA student bringing the frameworks that they're learning through their coursework, a law student really diving into the IP and legalities of advancing your venture, the PhDs and postdocs will support their team in diving into your technology and understanding it very quickly and being able to dive deep alongside all of you to understand your life's work. So it's a hand-in-hand opportunity where you're working closely with your deal team, oftentimes meeting once to multiple times a week to get them up to speed on the venture that you're working on, the technology that you are building out, and for them to share some feedback that they're finding in their due diligence process, perhaps some hurdles that they might have uncovered, some analogs that might be helpful to you and your team in supporting your team to advance through the process and pitch in the best light on our finals day. On week 2, we have an initial pitch deck that we require from both the Innovation Fund associates of what they've learned about you and your team thus far, and then from the management teams of kind of the initial pitch deck of what you have built thus far. That gives us a baseline to work with. And then as we progress through the finals, we help iterate and refine that pitch deck to prepare for your presentation in a demo day style pitch and finals. All teams that would apply for FDA regulatory training would partake in such to learn about kind of the regulatory pathways that you might have to navigate, suggestions from experts in the field to understand kind of the nuances of what that pathway looks like for you and your team. We then have another iteration of the pitch deck, again, following the feedback and support of both the Innovation Fund staff and some of our advisors. And then at the midpoint of the cycle, we have steering committee feedback, where we will give you an understanding of kind of what feedback comes from Polsky leadership to help, again, further refine and improve your deck. The version 3 of the deck is then reviewed by our advisory committee members. Those are individuals who have expertise in fields reflective of the companies coming through a given investment cycle. At that point as well, our Innovation Fund associates will be presenting the status of their due diligence to the advisory committee, with the hopes of securing really in-depth feedback, perhaps introductions that help level up on their due diligence findings, and support that will help them both advance their due diligence and provide support to your teams as you prepare to structure the best pitch possible on the finals day. We will also provide a presentation training to all teams to help you, similar to what Ellen described previously, improve upon your presentation skills, improve upon the narrative to which you're building to describe your technology, your venture, the milestones you hope to achieve, and the impact that you'd like your team to have in commercial application. And then finally, the last pitch deck will be presented again in Innovation Fund Finals, a demo day style pitch to our advisory committee, the general public, and Innovation Fund associates. Please know another resource to you throughout this process is having access to a designer, a graphic designer, to help build out any brand assets that might be helpful to your team, and more of the visual elements of your pitch deck as well. The Innovation Fund associates, as I mentioned, are a cross-disciplinary team of students that perform a collaborative due diligence process to validate the opportunity at hand. So they're working with you to kind of validate the path to commercialization and surface what it is that venture investors will be looking for as you look to raise later rounds of funding. So they'll help you unearth what those milestones might be, both from a regulatory perspective to a financing perspective as well, to help accelerate your success. In some cases, there's potential for longer engagements. In a case that an Innovation Fund associate has really connected with your team, provided support, and might be able to provide continued support after the close of an investment cycle, that's certainly possible and has happened in the past. One of the best aspects of the Innovation Fund Associates program, beyond the mentorship and collaborative work that they provide to you and your teams, is also the thorough due diligence that they will be able to provide to your team at the end of the engagement. So you will have access to all of the due diligence findings from their 10-week cycle as well. And that will help prepare you for later investor discussions, understand what questions may come up, and understand how you might be able to improve upon your narrative and your pitch as you continue along your path. So as we mentioned, Innovation Fund Finals is the culmination of the full cycle. This is a fully virtual pitch day as it was this fall. We anticipate and we'll be kind of following that for the spring to understand what that will look like, but may very well likely be fully virtual again in the fall setting. Management teams, so all of you, will have 10 minutes to present, followed by 10 minutes of Q&A. And throughout this period, we hope that you are kind of painting what is the picture of success for your venture? What does the path to commercialization look like? Who might be some of your strategic partners, and how do you see yourself getting to market and making commercial impact? This is also an introduction for external funding of what a presentation might look like when you pursue VCs externally. We then follow the management team presentations by closed door due diligence sessions, where our Innovation Fund associates will present their due diligence findings to our advisory committee members for us to then deliberate and determine who will be receiving investment from the George Shultz Innovation Fund. So speaking of investment, the George Shultz Innovation Fund invests through a SAFE agreement, which is a simple agreement for future equity. This essentially is money now that converts at your next fundraise. So within the Polsky SAFE agreement, it would require at least one-to-one match from professional investors, not friends and family. So if the innovation fund were to invest $150,000 in your venture for your participation in the cycle, to secure that $150,000, teams will have to secure a matching investment from another institutional investor to be able to secure the innovation fund dollars. So this is the first year of the one-to-one match, but we feel that it will provide and amplify the success of companies coming through and kind of, allow you to maximize on the momentum generated through your participation in the innovation fund to advance your successes forward. Our SAFE agreement also includes option for pro rata investment in future rounds, option of investment tranching, perhaps dependent on particular milestones deemed fit by our advisory committee. It includes board of advisor rights, obligation to provide updated cap tables on a biannual basis, and an annual survey that helps us stay up to date with how your venture is doing, but also for us to understand how we can continue to provide support and resources to your venture as you continue to scale. And then it also would include conversion to preferred stock. So these are all of the nuances of our SAFE agreement. Should you have any questions, please do put them in the chat, and we're happy to dive into those during the Q&A as well. So our selection process. We are looking for committed teams with a dedicated technology and business founders. We're looking for teams that have had significant technical milestones, whether it be, say your team is advancing a drug, we're looking for lead candidates, or that they have been identified or nearly identified. Within a device, we're hoping that a prototype has been completed. Should it be a software, it would be best for that particular team to have an MVP and some initial customers. All of this will be outlined in the Innovation Fund application, and will provide you opportunity to give additional detail as to what milestones it is particular to your team that you have achieved. We're looking to see technologies that are demonstrably better or different than what is already available. So what is it that provides you with a advantage against other competitors? Please do outline that in your application. We're also looking for really clear value propositions of your technology, and we're looking that they have been validated with end customers. So again, this is where the building blocks of the I-Corps and Compass Accelerator programs come in handy. I-Corps, especially within this regard, is having gone through some thorough customer discovery to understand not only who your customer is, but how your hypotheses are either validated or invalidated by their opinions, purchasing decisions, et cetera. And then beyond that, we work to know that you will have outside funding, customers, and other engagement as well. So kind of share with us what other advances you are making outside of the Innovation Fund process. Application best practices. Please do make the problem obvious and tangible. Let us know what it is that your research is addressing, and be sure to express not only kind of the technicalities of your research, but making it in a bit of layman's terms as you would present to investors as well. We oftentimes, will encourage scientists to kind of speak of it in broader terms so that it's accessible to anyone who might be reading your application. Should there be, additional white papers or any other research that you'd like to refer to for us to dive a bit deeper into understanding the technology, we welcome those attachments on the application as well. So again, minimizing technical and industry jargon will just help to better articulate your venture, not only to us, but get you in the habit of kind of forming a narrative that is accessible to partners, to investors, and otherwise to help best tell your story. And again, please do utilize attachments. These provide really powerful data and examples for our team to understand what you've been working on and what it is that your team is building. So please do take advantage of that opportunity as well. So the key dates and deadlines, the application has been open for a bit of time now. We're in the info session today, virtual over Zoom, and the application deadline for the George Shultz Innovation Fund will be on February 19th. We will take time to then review those applications internally and notify finalists by March 22nd. You'll have a little bit of time between notifications of teams advancing and the introduction to your Innovation Fund Associate Diligence team, likely to happen at about March 28th, right around the launch of the spring quarter. And then that 10-week cycle will begin on March 28th, ending on June 2nd with the George Shultz Innovation Fund Finals. And that is a full day engagement, which we have all teams present. And, you know, as we lead up to that opportunity, we'll provide more detailed agendas, so you know exactly what time your teams are presenting and that you'll be expected to be on the line. So we hope that you apply to any number of these programs. Again, wanting to illustrate kind of the pathway of programmatic opportunities that the Polsky Center can provide support to you as you are, you know, considering and or advancing your research from the lab to commercialization. So, you know, the I-Core program is fantastic for those who are looking to really dive into customer discovery, to then level up through the Compass Accelerator program, going through the startup evaluation and other opportunities that Ellen described. And then Innovation Fund is a great opportunity to prepare for and build towards closing your first institutional round through the mentorship of the Innovation Fund staff, the advisory committee, and the Innovation Fund associates who will work with your teams hand in hand. I see Ellen has just dropped in the applications for both I-Core and Compass Accelerator. In a moment, I'll be dropping in the application link for the Innovation Fund program. I will note with the application for Innovation Fund, our application platform is UNoodle. So using this link, you'll be required to create a UNoodle profile to build out your application, and that will allow you to save your materials and work on it over a period of time. If you're interested in applying to any of these programs beyond submitting an application, we also welcome you to reach out to us directly. We're happy to take some time to connect with you and understand which program is best for the stage in which you and your team are at, how we can provide support and how we can provide guidance as to which of these building blocks are best for your team and in what order. So please do see us as resources in that regard as well. So I will take a moment, let folks toss any questions they might have in the chat. We're happy to provide any additional clarity that we can. Wonderful. If anyone wants to come off mute as well, we welcome you to. Otherwise, for those of you who need to move on to the next call of the day, we welcome you to, and we'll stay on the line to continue Q&A. I see Ryan Myers has a question. Welcome you to come off mute.
Yeah, hi. Thanks for the presentation. It was really helpful. For the sake of kind of where you are in the process when it comes to the in-between between, let's say like government funding and that private funding stage, can you just dive a little bit more into maybe what that means if you're in the phase of being able to potentially use grants to further research, but also looking to do commercialization? How defined does that in between have to be, and what does that really mean to the evaluation team?
Great question. So in many cases, we will have teams who are continuing to, you know, seek out some non-dilutive funding through various grant structures, even during or after their time at the Innovation Fund. I would say a better metric would probably be seeing tangible milestones at which your team has accumulated, kind of demonstrating your path towards commercialization and the hopes of an institutional round. So with that said, you know, I would kind of reflect a bit more on whether milestones achieved would be reflective of the innovation fund process, if going through the Compass Accelerator might help you accumulate and demonstrate some of those milestones, or if you've already, say have an MVP and some initial customers, or you've kind of garnered some momentum in that regard, we can certainly, consider an application for the innovation fund if that seems more in line with the status at which your venture is at. I'd be happy to also offline if it's easier to talk about the nuances and specifics of your particular venture as well.
Yeah, thank you, Nora. I think that's really helpful. And we are actually a Compass team. So we're just kind of
fantastic.
In between.
Yeah, so I would say the Compass is by no means a prerequisite for participation in the Innovation Fund, but it's an excellent building block. So if you have participated in the Compass program, I'd certainly encourage you to apply for the Innovation Fund. I think a really helpful aspect of the Innovation Fund process is that even those applicants who don't necessarily advance in a particular investment cycle, we are really looking to create a community of support through the Polsky Center ecosystem. And as such, we'll provide thorough feedback on your application and direct you to, if you're not yet ready for Innovation Fund, what we would be looking for in a later application, what resources might help you achieve that, et cetera.
Amazing. Yeah. And I do think we are at a stage for it. I was just curious about how to word that funding difference of the positioning of the government versus private funding aspect. But thank you. I think that's very helpful.
Yeah, can I, this is Ming. Can I follow up on Ryan? So Ryan and I are actually on the same team for the Campus program. Yeah. So our Campus program will run through June. So what you're saying is that it is okay to concurrently join both the Campus program and also the Innovation Fund then?
We will have to offline on that to understand the time commitment that those teams would be required to make sure that that's feasible to overlap. So given that the Compass program is new, that will be something that our team can kind of take back and determine, at what point within Compass you're all at. And the spring cycle is not the only cycle available to you. So if your team from a bandwidth perspective would prefer to focus on the Compass and, we find that there might be a bit too much to balance between both the Compass and Innovation Fund programs, then the potential for application in next fall's investment cycle might be best for your team to allow for more focus on each of the programs independently.
Okay.
Laura, can I weigh in here? Because I know
Absolutely.
this well. I think this team is really well suited for Compass, and I think they could handle the rigors of finishing up with Compass and starting with
excellent
the Innovation Fund. So yes, I think you could.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
And thank you, Nora. This was great.
Thank you both. Christine, is there anything else you want to add for either of the programs or anything to round out the information for today's session?
No, just that we're looking for other ways in which we can continue to help support entrepreneurism and our startups. So one of the new programs we're going to be starting is peer-to-peer. And this would be a way in which our PIs, our professor entrepreneurs, can gather together and learn from each other. So I know that our first session is going to be next month. We're going to be talking about non-dilutive funding. And then the one after that is going to be approximately every quarter. So we're going to be talking about venture capital funding. And then Nora's going to be leading one. Then the next one talking about how to bring on your first few employees and how to compensate them and things like that. So
yeah, those are very important.
Yeah, so we're trying to find ways in which we can bring the professors together so that they have a peer group to discuss these topics together. Okay.
Thank you, Christine. Wonderful. Well, thank you again, everyone, for joining us today. If you have additional questions, Ellen and I are happy to stay on the line to help provide any feedback that might be helpful. We're also available via email. should it be helpful to kind of schedule some time to discuss one-on-one. So please see us as a resource to you through these programs and, through personal outreach as well. And we hope to see many of your applications for both programs.
And Burke, if you stay in the line, we can discuss through your question that you asked too.
Sure.
Okay, because I wanted to make sure we got to that. So you had asked the question about the one-to-one match. The one-to-one match is meant to be one in which it will help to provide, Compass is sort of a program where you're still getting grants and funding. We're trying to move companies down the entrepreneurial route where they would be next connecting with venture capitalists. So, for example, we would be working with how to help identify venture capitalists. I know with you, for example, it might be in the quantum space, right?
Right.
Yeah, and so one of the things I did this weekend was to start putting together a money map of all of the quantum players, and where do you find venture capitalists who invest in quantum. And so it would be through that kind of thing to help give you then those soft introductions. We're also connecting with, we're building this whole list of VCs that have connections to University of Chicago. They've been students, they've been helping us out with various programs. They've invested in some of our other startups. So those are the kinds of things we'll be doing as well. So so it's meant to help more with the institutional funding, not the SBIRs, STTRs. And we find that I ran a similar fund, and when we had the one-to-one match, it worked very well. We find that if we say, we are willing to invest if you can get someone else, the someone else is much easier to land. So that's what we're trying to do with this.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you for the answer.
Yeah, there's quite a few funds actually. I'm surprised that invest in quantum. And some amazing rounds. I was looking at them this weekend, and there have been some rounds that were in the hundreds of millions of dollars, a few of them. So.
And I'm guessing there's an upper limit to the one-to-one match.
No. You can do one-to-one or anything above. So there's no limit.
That's impressive. Thank you.
Okay. All right.
Thanks
Any
again,
other
everyone.
questions?
All right. Well, once again, please don't be strangers. Feel free to reach out should you have any additional questions, and we really hope to see many of your applications in the next few weeks.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.